Your love never fails. Your love never fails. Your love never fails. Come on. Your love never fails. It never gives out. Never runs out on me. Your love never fails. It never gives out. Never runs out on me. Your love never fails. Never gives out. Never runs out on me. Oh, your love. I will sing of your goodness. I will sing of your love. Through the seasons come quickly. You've always been enough. Though the night may get darker, though the waiting seems long, you have always been faithful to remind me of your love. You are good. In the morning I sing, you are good. And in the evening I sing, you are good. You are good to me. Sing that again. I will sing of your goodness. And I will sing of your goodness. I will sing of your love. Through the seasons come quickly. You've always been enough. Though the night may get darker, though the waiting seems long, you have always been faithful to remind me of your love. You are good. In the morning I sing, you are good. In the evening I sing, you are good. You are good to me. You have always been patient. You have always been kind. You're consistent through the ages. Oh, what a friend of mine. So I'll remind my soul, bless you, standing firm upon your truth. Knowing you cannot be shaken, 'cause I see what you can do. Oh, you are good. In the morning I sing, you are good. And in the evening I sing, you are good. You are good to me. Oh, so very good. Sing it again. Oh, you are good. In the morning I sing, you are good. In the evening I sing, you are good. You are good to me. Keep on getting better. 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 keep on getting better, keep on getting better. Oh, you keep on getting better, keep on getting better. You keep on getting better, keep on getting better. Keep on getting better, keep on getting better. Oh, you keep on getting better, keep on getting better. You are good. You are good. In the morning I say you are good. In the evening I say you are good. You are good to me. Oh, you are good. In the morning I say you are good. In the evening I say you are good. You are good to me. Oh, so very good, so very good. Keep on getting better, keep on getting better. Keep on getting better, keep on getting better. Keep on getting better, keep on getting better. Oh, keep on getting better, keep on getting better. The older I get, the better you are in my eyes. The older I get, the more I see your faithfulness. The older I get, oh, the more magnificent you become to my eyes. Oh God, 'cause every day gets sweeter, every day gets better, every day gets sweeter, every day gets better, every day gets sweeter, every day gets better, every day gets sweeter, every day gets better. Keep on getting better, keep on getting better. Keep on getting better, keep on getting better. Keep on getting better, keep on getting better. You keep on getting better, keep on getting better. 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 You are good. In the morning I'll sing you are good. In the evening I'll sing you are good. You are good to me. Good to me. Keep on being good to me.
town. Of all the love I found, and it's written in my heart. The day you tore my world apart. Hallelujah, King forever, friend and Savior. Jesus' blood never fails me. Jesus' blood never fails me. Jesus' blood never fails me. Jesus' blood, Jesus' blood. In the secret it will run to the corners of the earth, where every woman, every son will carry high their chains undone. Hallelujah, King forever, friend and Savior. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, King forever, friend and Savior. Jesus' Jesus' blood. Jesus' blood.
Jesus' blood.
We overcome
We overcome
by the blood of the Lamb.
by the blood of the Lamb.
By the blood of the Lamb.
By the blood of the Lamb. Not by works, so no one can boast. Only by the blood we come.
Jesus' blood never fails me. 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 Jesus' blood, Jesus' blood.
It's the same today as it was yesterday, and will be the same tomorrow. We overcome only by the blood, only by the blood of Jesus. It's the same today as it was yesterday, nothing else has changed. The blood that speaks a better name.
Blood speaks better things.
It's the same today as it was yesterday. This is how we overcome. It's the same today as it was yesterday. It will be the same tomorrow too. This is how we overcome.
This is how we overcome.
Only by the precious blood.
Only by the precious blood.
This is how we overcome.
This is how we overcome.
It's only by His precious blood.
It's only by His precious blood.
It's the same today as it was yesterday. Nothing has changed. We only overcome by His blood. By It's the same today, it's the same today. Pressing through this earthly veil, you reveal your mystery. When I step into you, for you are infinitely great. In the morning I'll sing you are God. And in the evening I'll sing you are God. You are good to me. Lord, I pray that you come and you overwhelm us with your goodness this morning. Open up our eyes. When nothing has changed, you remain the same. Events may change around us, but we still are dependent upon your mercy. We still only come by your blood. We still pray in faith. We still walk in victory. We still daily live in your presence and your glory. It'll always be from you, through you, and to you, Jesus. We love you. Amen. Well, we are so excited to be here with you this morning, to be with each other. I haven't seen Romeo in like 2 months. So good to see you over there. So glad that you decided to join us this morning. We have some announcements for you. The first thing is that we're continuing our 2 o'clock in the afternoon. If you want a quick word, a quick encouragement for the day, hop on our JPC page. Different ones of our staff members. We're just spreading the love. So if you want to help us spread the love, you can click on that. You can share it. You can hop on with us, interact with us. It's been a good time. Also, we are going to take our offering now. Are we ready for that?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So if you want to give this morning, we have a way for you to do that. There should be some info popping up on the screen that you will see. It's the same. It hasn't changed. Awesome. Seems to be a theme this morning. So if you want to give, you can go on our website. You can go to jesuspursuit.com. There's a give button on there. You can utilize that, or you can use Tidely. That's what I personally do. I like it. I have an app on my phone because I like apps. And so it just click, go there, give. It's great. If you want to mail in a check, you can do that. We have a P.O. box listed right there for you. And that is awesome too. We also have some Zoom groups going. If you are interested in connecting throughout the week with a few of us, just, socially, it's great. If you haven't been a part of a Zoom group yet, I encourage you to try one. Reach out to us if you haven't. It's fun. It's fun to see faces. It's fun to connect. It's just such a hard time right now, right? Because we want to be able to, give all the love and see each other's faces. And this at least makes it possible to look each other in the eyes and say, hey, how are you doing? More than just a phone call. So if you are not a part of a Zoom group yet and you'd like to be a part of one, just go ahead and comment right here. We'll get back to you, or you can email us at info@jesuspursuit.com. And is that
.org.
.org?
Yep.
I thought I... Really?
Really?
Sorry. I've been saying it wrong this whole time. So, jesuspursuit.org. Decades of it wrong. So... But I bet if you press jesuspursuit.com, you won't be able to get there, so you'll try the org, and then everything will be better. Are there any other announcements?
I don't think so.
I don't think there's any other announcements. We have a treat for you today. Papa D is in the house,
You wanna go pop up
and
there, Dad?
him and Emily are going to be sharing together today. And Denny has a great word. Emily mentioned it a little bit last week, and I think they're going to kind of expound on that. I don't know what else they have for us, but I'm looking forward to it. So we're hopping on here.
So we're going to take your microphones.
Cool.
Come sit in the couch.
Yep.
bear with us while we do a little bit of transition.
Switcheroo.
Switcheroo.
This one for you.
Scooch over. Here. Pardon us. Okay, I'm gonna grab. Say hi, Dad. Say hi to the people.
Oh, we're on.
We're on.
Okay.
We're live.
We're live, all right. Hello, everybody. Man, it felt so good to be in this live worship. It was fantastic, you guys. Still feel like dripping with anointing all over me. It's just fantastic. Can't wait till we're all together back here. Very soon, I hope. It's going to be powerful times of worship. So, Emily asked me to come join her this morning, which I'm happy to do. And so you just go ahead and
Yeah.
get us started here.
Well, hey guys, thanks for bearing with us as we get set up. We got to take all our little precautions, you know. So thanks, Dad, for joining.
Yeah.
I felt it was important that we hear from you about an encounter that you had. Gosh, how long ago was it? Was that in 2008?
5.
2005. Okay.
Yeah. Same year should be passed.
Okay. You got to talk into your microphone.
Okay. So
He said same year as Shabu passed.
Yeah.
That was actually 2006. No, it wasn't. You're right, 2005.
yeah, summer of 2005.
Okay, so the reason I wanted Dad to share this is it keeps coming back, and you know, we're in just really interesting times. But I'm so excited, as I shared last week, I'm very excited about the times that we're in because I feel like we are primed and prepped for an outpouring of the Lord. And I keep seeing, you know, the Bible become very alive. It's like in real living color right now, and everything is super relevant. Old prophetic words are coming back up, and old prophetic promises that have yet been fulfilled are now in the forefront of our mind. And one in particular that has recently, that I made mention of last week, one that keeps popping up regularly right now, is that of the Hebrides revival. And I don't know that you knew a ton about the Hebrides revival until you had this encounter.
No.
And I feel it's very, very important for right now because, well, we'll get into why I think it's so important, but would you share that, starting with the angel that you encountered?
Oh.
Like,
yeah.
go all the way back. That was part of what
Yeah,
led
that's
you to
true.
get to the Isle of Lewis. So I think all the prophetic pieces are exciting. Now, some of you may have heard this story, but I want you to hear it again because I feel it's very prophetically relevant for today. And I really truly believe it is how we are to position our hearts as the church. I hear a lot of, where's the church right now? This is where I believe the church is supposed to be in this season. And so I think it's really important that we hear this. So just get your cup of coffee, sit back, and Papa D is going to tell us a story all the way back to 2005.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, wow, this is interesting. I started early in the spring praying in the auditorium, you know, the other side there. I was just myself, and one person asked if they could be there, and they just laid on the floor, and I said, yeah, it's okay. But I was praying the apostolic prayers. I wanted to be alone praying the apostolic prayers. And every day I would finish, before I'd go to my office, I would take a prayer walk around the city. And I usually would just start heading west and go around and through the mall and then come back around and to the office. This particular day, and it was probably late May, actually, I decided to go the other direction. And when I walked through the opening into the Weimar parking lot, I heard a sound and I looked up, and a huge man, was walking towards me. It was very early in the morning. People were not out yet. There was very little activity.
When you say a huge man, you mean a huge man, right?
Well, I'm saying like maybe 6'5".
Okay, that's pretty huge.
Huge for me. It's 5'11". He's coming walking across the parking lot playing bagpipes.
What was he wearing?
He had bagpipes, no shirt, a kilt, and sandals.
Weird, right?
Very weird.
Yeah.
My first thought was, never seen any homeless guys like this, you know, dressed like this.
Right.
This is very unusual. And then as I kept walking, and he kept walking right towards me, time seemed to just freeze for me, really. Everything slowed down, and I just was almost in a trance, really, as this man walked toward me playing bagpipes. And when he got right next to me, my thought was, I want to reach out and grab him and say, hey, what are you doing? But something inside me said, don't touch him.
Yeah.
And he walked on by, playing these beautiful sounds from bagpipes, and then it disappeared. And when I turned around, when the music stopped and I turned around, he was gone. Clearly this was an angel, but I'd never seen anything like this before, Emily. It was like a man in the physical. It was so real.
And no one else seemed to really be noticing these bagpipes and this shirtless Scottish man.
Well, like I said, hardly anybody was out at all
Okay.
in the morning. It was very early in the morning. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning.
Gotcha.
And so, no activity yet.
So what happened when you realized that this was an angelic encounter?
I shook. It really shook me up.
Yeah.
I didn't talk about it for a while because I thought people would think I was crazy.
Yeah, they might have.
But then I had started having a recurring dream with Bob Jones in it. And I would go up to Bob and Viola's little house in Panama City and knew what that looked like and had been there, and knock on the door, and Bob would answer and say, well, what can I do for you? And I say, well, Bob, when you going to Scotland? Well, I don't know. I know I'm going to Scotland, but just pray. And then Viola would come, and she'd hand me a little cupcake dressed, decorated like a wedding cake with candles on it and stuff. And so that was the end, and I'd wake up. I had it 3 times. Really mystified by this dream, and so I even called Bob and asked him, and he said, well, no one was going to Scotland someday, just pray. And so I thought, well, someday I'm going to Scotland with Bob.
Yeah.
But Kathy Walters and David were here, you may remember, and David was doing stuff, receiving the baptism of the Holy Spirit with the kids. Powerful time.
Yeah.
So I went out to lunch with Kathy, and I relayed this dream to her because I knew she was good friends with Bob. And she said, oh, you're not supposed to go to Scotland with Bob. I said, well, what do you mean? She said, you're supposed to go to Scotland and have an encounter with God like Bob. I said, oh, okay. So she said, you really need to do this. I said, I know I need to do it. So a little bit of time passed, and I made arrangements to change my itinerary because we were going to do the first ever Elijah List conference in Germany in June. And so I asked Steve Schultz if he would change his itinerary with me, and that we could go to the Hebrides Islands, the Isle of Lewis. And he said yes.
So from knowing that you're supposed to go to Scotland, from the dream, from the encounter, what made you choose the Isle of Lewis? Was
Okay.
that something that God had led you to do, or did you just say that's the place?
Yeah, I went on a ministry trip to Montana, and when I was flying back home, I was listening to the new worship CD that Alberta and Kimberly had put out, The Longing, and I just went in the Spirit. And the Lord spoke to me clearly and said, I want you to go to the Hebrides Islands. He didn't say why, he just said Hebrides Islands.
Okay. Did you know what that was?
No,
Okay.
I had to look it up.
I would too.
And it was spelled Hebrides.
Hebrides, exactly.
Because I asked the Lord, I said, well, why are you asking me to go? And he said, this is about the wedding supper of the Lamb.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's spelled Hebrides. And I thought, wow, this is really strange. So I made the arrangements with Steve, and he graciously agreed to spend the time with me. We had a great time. I actually booked a bed and breakfast in Barvis, not knowing yet until we met with Kathy Walters in the Hebrides. She was doing a tour there.
Same time.
Yeah, and we didn't even know this till we got there.
Okay.
So we
all
met,
the pieces are coming
yeah,
together.
so we met there, and she's a student of the whole revival in the Hebrides Islands.
Okay.
And I had booked a bed and breakfast in a little place called Barvis on the other side of the island, and the house was in walking distance where the church was that Duncan Campbell preached
Wow.
and had the revival.
But you didn't know that. You just
I didn't
booked
know
it.
that till I got there.
That's so cool.
So, yeah, I mean, it's really... So she filled us in on stuff. We met people. We actually went down to that church, met the young pastor, who's a really neat guy. And I'll tell you something, I mean, it was like being thrown back 200 years, Emily.
The city was like that?
Yes, I
Just
mean,
the
there's
environment?
still no law enforcement anywhere doing anything. The service that Steve and I went to on Sunday morning was hard benches. The pastor preached from a platform, a perch in the back of the church, and there was maybe a dozen of us there, and we had hymn books and psalm books, psalms and hymns, and we sang those a cappella, 20 minutes. Then he spoke he did some announcements, received an offering, and he spoke for 20 minutes exactly, and it was over.
Huh.
And we felt the fear of the Lord and the presence of God in that place.
That's all you need.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah, it was amazing.
Okay, so you're in the Isle of Lewis. You're staying in a place in Barvis, right in walking distance to the church that the Hebrides revival broke out with Duncan Campbell. You're with Steve Schultz. You went to church. What happened when you were in the Hebrides?
Well, there was a lot. I mean, we met a young couple. I may mention that later when I describe what the revival's going to look like.
Yeah.
But we also spent some time with Kathy and her daughter and some people. And
You just kind of learned about the revival
yeah,
while you were there.
we didn't really do the exact tour with them, but we spent a little time with them, and then we did some of our own exploration, and we were coming to the end of our trip, and the next day we were supposed to fly out and go to Germany, and I was worshiping in the bed and breakfast, and as I was worshiping, I was taken up in the Spirit. I was actually worshiping to a Michael Larson song.
It's all for you.
It's all for you.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it's about the glory of the Lord, oddly enough. But so I'm taken up in the Spirit, and I get lifted up above the earth, and I could see trouble coming on the earth.
What did it look like?
It looked like chaos. It looked like very fearful in a way, a lot of chaos. Just from that vantage point, just I would see, war type stuff,
Yeah.
people fighting each other, people, stealing, things like that, just very chaotic. And then a wave of glory would sweep over the trouble.
What did that look like?
A cloud. Looked like a cloud, just this cloud sweeping over. And then it was, when it got past, more trouble.
More trouble.
And as I was watching this, it just, the time frame increased. It just got faster and faster until eventually there was nothing but the a cloud of glory on the earth. That's all you could see was a cloud of glory covering the entire earth.
Mm-hmm.
And then I shot up into another place, and I didn't see the Lord, but the presence of God was unlike anything I'd ever felt on the earth. In me, around me, everywhere. So overwhelming, I was afraid, but yet overwhelmed with love, but a love that was beyond description at the same time.
Wow.
And I had this thought, while I didn't ask anything, I didn't look for the Lord, I guess, I was just overwhelmed. Couldn't do anything, really, and I had this thought, how could anybody resist this love?
Right.
But at the same time, my other thought was, I knew that some would. And then I was back in my body, I guess, crying.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve Schultz was awake. He had been taking a nap, and he's looking at me. He's like, what's going on with you? And I said, I can't talk about it. And so that's what I saw.
Didn't Steve say we needed to go to the...
That came
end?
later. We
Okay.
were going to do sightseeing, but really it was like we needed to
You knew
find
what
the
you were there,
airport.
yeah.
We needed to find the airport because a young man had driven us to the car rental, and we didn't remember how to get to the airport. So we looked on a map, and we drove over there. And as we get there, we find this lighthouse on the way. He's like, let's go to this lighthouse. I said, yeah, let's take a look at this. And it was at a place called Gate.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we go to this lighthouse and walk up on a hill. There's a few other people milling around. And that's when he said to me, I think you have something to pray. I said, I don't have anything to pray. And he said, no, I'm not sure you do. He said, just try.
Just try.
And so I started speaking in tongues.
Yeah.
And when I started speaking in tongues, all of a sudden this power of God hit me, and I just fell on the ground, and just was blabbering out in tongues at first. And then I got up and began to declare and pray Ezekiel 43.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you share with us what you prayed?
Yeah, I can. It's really interesting because we were at the very easternmost point of the island, and at a place called Gate. I knew this was Ezekiel 43 when we drove away. He said, well, what was that? He said, I think it's Ezekiel 43. This is all just kind of coming to
Just
me.
bubbling up in the
Yeah,
spirit.
because it was such a God moment in
Right.
my life. It was really unlike anything I've ever experienced, to be honest. I've had encounters, but this was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. And I didn't go to the scripture with Steve. I just said it was Ezekiel 43, looked it up later. And this is what it is.
Yeah.
Verse 1, it says, afterward the angel brought me to the gate that faces east. And behold, the glory of God of Israel came from the east, and his voice was like the sound of many waters, and the earth shone with his glory. Well, it says that it came from the east, a sound like many waters, and the glory of the Lord, the earth shone with his glory, all coming from the east. It goes on to say, and I really don't want to get into too much scripture here, but down further it says, he says, Son of man, this is the place of my throne and the soles of my feet, where I will dwell in the midst of the children of Israel forever. And it says when the glory went into the temple, it says in here, and then it goes out of the temple from the east. I began to declare and prophesy the glory of the Lord, what I saw in the heavens, covering the entire earth in the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, going out from the east gate and covering the entire earth. And Emily, when you look out from that place through the islands, you feel like you're at the very beginning of the world. It's an amazing view. It's like you can see everything from that place until you can't see anything but the horizon drop off.
That's amazing. And then you're standing right there at a lighthouse, which I
Yeah.
think is such a prophetic picture in and of itself. Like, honestly, I believe that's what the church is meant to be, is a lighthouse to the world. You know, so you're declaring it from that place.
Yeah.
And, oh, I love it. So, and you weren't just declaring this over Ireland or Scotland. You were declaring this in that place, in that thin place of the Lord's presence where He had done so much. You were declaring for the whole earth to experience this, right?
Yes, I wasn't declaring the trouble, obviously.
No.
I was declaring the glory. And,
Trouble comes on its own.
And yeah, it does. This world is full of pain and trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's like the whole idea of light. You know Isaiah 60 very well.
Yeah.
Rise and shine, for your light has come. And it says, gross darkness shall cover the earth, but the light of His glory will shine on us,
Right.
the church. And so I'm declaring the glory of the Lord covering the earth. And that revival, I believe when this begins to happen, I actually believe it's begun.
Mm-hmm.
I said that last summer, remember? I said in this room, I said 2 things are going to happen this year.
You did say that, I remember.
I said that we're going to see more persecution we've ever seen come to the church in our lifetime, but we're going to see awakenings and visitations all over the world and the nation, and the awakening that we've been crying out for, really, we're going to begin to actually see, not that it hasn't started maybe earlier, who knows, we're actually going to see evidence of it this year. And so I've had in my heart, you know, what would this look like, Lord? And I felt like He said it'll look like what happened to the people on the Isle of Lewis.
So can you talk a little bit about what happened to the people on the Isle of Lewis?
Yeah, before Duncan Campbell came over, you know, people that know the history of the Hebrides revival know that there was 2 elderly women who were praying, but there were also, I mentioned this right before the shutdown, about the men praying in the barn.
Yeah.
There were 7 men praying in the barn for 5 months, about 3 days a week. And they said, we're going to pray until the Lord comes. And the last day that they prayed, he showed up in their church, that church in Barvis. They were in that barn in Barvis. And the glory went out over the whole island that night that they were praying.
And it was a weighty,
Heavy,
fear of the Lord
yeah.
presence. Talk about that a little bit, what that was like.
It covered the entire island, and it was very heavy, weighty, and the reason I believe it was fearful to people is a lot of these people that it was falling on initially were unsaved.
We're unsaved, right. It's like in John where it talks about the light,
Yeah.
you know, and their darkness, you know, they are attracted to the light, but some people reject
Yeah.
the light because they love their darkness. And so there's that whole like weighing in the balance of your sin, and that's what was happening to
People are waking in the night. They would go out in their fields, get out on their knees, cry out to God. Would happen in the workplace, it happened in the bars. And this was happening before Duncan got there. And we met a young couple that was very significant. This is funny in a way. Steve and I were about to fly over to the Isle of Lewis, little area for a smaller plane, and there was just one other guy in there besides us, and he's flipping through a notebook, a young guy. And Steve decides to go over and say, what are you reading?
Yeah.
Like the Ethiopian eunuch. And the guy's reading a notebook, and it's prophecies from the Elijah list.
Nuh-uh.
Yes. And he's reading one by Chuck Pierce. And Steve looks at the guy, and he's, you know, and the guy looks at him and he goes, Steve Schultz, what are you doing here?
Okay, so time out. If anyone is watching and you don't know who Steve Schultz is, Steve Schultz is the founder of the Elijah List, this internet friend. And a very good friend of ours, yeah. And he was traveling with Dad in this time, and this young man was reading Steve Schultz's publication, and then, so what are the odds of that?
Yeah, I know.
Those are God odds.
Yeah, I'd like to win the lottery too, I
Yeah.
guess. So this guy,
How weird.
we had an instant friendship with him.
Right.
He took us to the car rental. We said, well, we want to go out to dinner. He said he was married. We want to go out to dinner. And he told us this story.
Okay.
He said about meeting his wife. And so he said, we got married. We were married a year. I'm a fisherman. I fish on the North Sea. It's kind of like deadlift catch.
Mm-hmm.
They would be out 6 weeks, home for a couple weeks. He came home, and his wife, who was an accountant in town, was shaking and crying at her desk. And he said, what's the matter with you? Are you sick? She's like, no, I'm not sick. I don't know. He says, well, what's wrong? You got emotional problems? You need a counselor? You need to have somebody to help you? So, I don't know. He said, well, what's wrong with you? Are you going crazy? She said, I don't know. I just know that if I don't find God, I'm going to perish.
Wow.
Now, this was
This is more present time.
This is the year before we met this couple.
Okay. So this would be 2004.
Yeah. So he goes back out to sea. He took her he found a pastor to lead her to the Lord.
Okay.
She gets saved. He goes out to sea. He comes back into his home, and the same thing happens to him.
Happened to him.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a believer before?
No,
Wow.
not at all. Never raised in the church, never went to church. Neither one of them had any experience with church. So they get radically saved, and I felt like God said, I'm showing you a model for what I'm going to do in this awakening. Not that people won't be preaching the gospel and all of that, but he said, I'm going to save this nation.
Come on.
He said, this nation is almost irredeemable in the sight of man, but I'm going to save this nation.
And that type of response that this woman had, this couple that you met,
Yeah.
that was a similar type of outpouring that happened in the Hebrides. This is similar stuff.
Yes.
People were saying, I have to know God.
If I don't find God, I'm going to perish.
If I don't find God, I'm going to perish. That's pretty incredible. And so you feel like that type of awakening in the hearts of the unsaved is about to hit us.
I do.
I do too.
And if you think about it even just logically, Emily, nobody's going to argue this culture into the kingdom.
No.
There's no way, I don't care, even if you're anointed, people are either going to be ready to get saved or they're not going to get saved because our culture has gotten so deep in the weeds that it doesn't know which way is out.
And you're not saying we shouldn't evangelize and
Not
we
at
shouldn't
all.
share the gospel and that we should,
Not at all.
that's not
My
the
good friend
message.
Dan is doing it every weekend,
Yeah.
And other people too. And so,
You don't know, you may just stumble upon the person that's been trembling in their bed saying, if I don't find God, I'm going to perish.
well,
So-
it just so happens Dan seems to stumble on many of those
Yeah.
people, Dan Mickelson. So, and I'm saying yes, preach the gospel by any means, but
What do you
thankfully
think we need to do?
thankfully the help of the Lord is on the way.
Yeah. So what do you think? Okay, wait, I'm going to hold off on that question
Okay.
because I wanted to. There's another little puzzle piece of the Hebrides revival that's happening right now on the earth that some people may not know about. And this isn't a political statement by any means, but it's another one of those. No way, is that really happening right now? There was a young man that was helping Duncan Campbell in the Hebrides revival, and his name was Donald.
Donald Smith.
And he was very, very active in just running with Duncan Campbell and serving, and he was only like 16 years old, I guess, when this happened. And he had a cousin, I believe her name was Mary, and she was in the thick of all of that. And Duncan Campbell actually gave her his Bible.
That
Is
I
that
don't
right?
know, but she had her Bible that as a teenager with her when she came to America. I don't know that Duncan Campbell gave it to her.
I think it was that Duncan Campbell gave her or gave Donald the Bible. Somehow it was used in that time. And she came to America, she immigrated to America in the 30s sometime. And she married and she had 4 children. And, I don't need to say all their names, but her 4th child's name is Donald, because she named him after her cousin that she so loved in that revival. And when Donald was growing up, she gave him that Bible that she had from the revival. And that Donald is our Donald, the 45th President of the United States of America. And he has that Bible from that revival in the Oval Office with him right now.
He does.
And, that's not to say that Donald Trump is a revivalist. That's not to say that Donald Trump is, the second coming. I don't believe any of those things. That's not even to say that he's saved, but I pray every day that he's had an experience like what I've been talking about this morning. Like, wouldn't that be amazing if he had an awakening that said, and I don't know that he hasn't either, but I feel like that's his heritage, to wake up and say, I must know God.
Yeah.
If I don't know God, I will perish. And he's currently leading our nation in times of trouble that are covering not just America, but they're covering the whole earth.
Yeah.
This is flipping weird. What's going on right now? This is so unique and all of these little puzzle pieces are happening. I feel like that's just one of those moments where you just stumble upon a lighthouse at the place called Gate. I feel like it's another one of those things where you just happen to book a bed and breakfast in walking distance you just happen to meet a guy in an airport that, is reading your own publication. You just happen to be walking down the street with a guy with, even if he wasn't an angel, I believe he was, but even if he wasn't, you just happened to stumble upon a Scottish bagpipe player, at 7 a.m. in Albany, Oregon. Like all of these things I think are culminating, like right here, right now, I believe is the time. And I believe that so much, as much as I'm sitting here, I believe that now is the time for this.
God says he confirms his word with signs and wonders.
Absolutely.
Following, and I didn't in any way question the encounter I had, but when we got in the plane to fly out of Lewis, a huge thunderstorm broke out.
Right.
And it was still going on in Glasgow when we landed. When we got to Germany, it still was thunderstorming all the way there. Stacy Campbell said lightning also hit her plane.
That's right, it actually hit the wing of her plane.
Yeah, it hit the wing of her plane. So we get to Germany and we do the conference. Had another encounter there that was incredible too.
Mm-hmm.
That I won't even, it's like another subject. So, but then we leave there to go to vacation in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
We go through Switzerland and a huge thunderstorm breaks out. I mean, it was Dave and Teresa and anybody that was with us, Steve and Doreen, I mean, they will remember this was like the most incredible thunderstorm. It happened so fast. We were going to eat lunch out on the docks of this beautiful lake and looked over at the sky and I said, you guys better run for cover. And we got in our cars and bam, it hit and just torrential rain. So then we got out of there and we got some lunch. We drove to Italy, and it was bright and sunny and hot. And then when we got to the place where we were going to separate from Schultz, and they were going to stay at a place up near where they filmed Much Ado About Nothing. Where there was the actual place, the castle's there, the whole thing. A thunderstorm broke out, and they could hardly get up the hill to their house. So we drove down, and then it breaks up, and we're in Italy. A thunderstorm breaks out where we're staying in Italy. And then when we got home, a huge thunderstorm broke out right behind our house. You know how they roll in July, the clouds will roll in. lightning struck behind our home. Thunderstorm after thunderstorm after thunderstorm after thunderstorm. And then we got the call 2 weeks later that Shabu had drowned, saving 3 people. Just the strangest summer of my life.
Yeah, it was really wild, and so many people came to Jesus that summer too, and
Very
we experienced some of the hardest times
So
with the
traumatic.
most glory
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
So all that to say, you know, all of these things are just confirming the word. And
Yeah.
so why did I ask him to share this with you? I mean, I think it's obvious that God has got a plan for us in the middle of hardship, in spite of chaos happening around us. The glory of the Lord is rolling in right behind that. And as the church, I really believe that we're to be like those 2 old ladies and the men in the barn right now.
Yeah.
You know, in prayer, absolutely seeking the face of Jesus for awakening, for revival,
Yeah.
for our cities, for our families, for our nation. There's so many people that we love, that we know dearly, that we've been praying for, you know, that we want them to have that encounter that says, you know, if I don't find God, I'll perish. I have to know God. I want to know God. And there's so many people that we don't know that, and you can feel the earth longing for the sons of and daughters of God to be revealed. And so I feel personally that, you know, God has given you just a look into the future of what he's doing, and that we all get to be a part of it. And when we ask the question, what is God doing right now? He's getting ready to release his glory.
Yeah.
And what is my role in it? I think it's to hit my knees, to be in prayer, to be on my face before the Lord, and to have those little steps of obedience. That's the other part of your story. You could have just seen the guy on the street and said, that's weird.
Yeah.
Told it in staff meeting, we could have laughed about how weird Albany is and moved on. You could have thought that those dreams about Bob Jones and the little wedding cake and going to Scotland were just, you know, pizza or whatever, you know, thought it was for something for Bob Jones to do. But the journey of simple obedience with God to lead you into place of encounter and into revelation, I think is so important too. That's not just something special reserved for, you know, senior leaders. That's for everybody. That's for the stay-at-home mom. That's for the engineer. That's for the poet. That's for everybody, you know? And I thought it was really important that you share this encounter, because I feel like it gives us marching orders for the days ahead as the church. That's not to say that you won't get involved in other things, that you won't go out and, I mean, there's lots of very practical, tangible, getting our hands and feet engaged. Some of you are engaging in, you know, rallies, and some of you are engaging in feeding the city. Not saying that those things aren't okay or important, but they all should be rooted and grounded in prayer. And I think the best thing that we can do as a company of people is pray. And we can do it in so many simple ways. You can get on the phone and pray with someone. You can pray by yourself. There's Zoom meetings. You can get together with people. There's different ways that we can gather in this time and pray. But we need to be praying.
If I could just share one thing about right now. I know one of the things that's happened to me through all of this is God really reminding me that Christians are supposed to live with an eternal perspective.
Yeah.
I think, you know, in the one sense, you know, as citizens of a country, we all have governments. Those things were sanctioned by God. We should fight against oppression and injustice when we see it. At the same time, this earth is not our home.
Right.
And I had this thought yesterday, actually. If I could choose, which would I choose? Pain and suffering and all the things that I like to do in the world, that the world has to offer, and choose the pain and the suffering? Or would I choose a place called heaven where there's no pain, there's no suffering, there's no witchcraft, there's no sickness, there's no evil of any kind, there's no trouble, there's only love and only God? Would I choose, do I love the things of the world enough to say, oh, I'll take the pain and the suffering because I love this stuff too? Or am I really like the saints of old, who's looking for a city whose builder and maker is God? That of all the heroes of faith in chapter 11 of book of Hebrews. Am I like that, or am I like this mixture?
Yeah. What does that look like practically, you think?
Again, I think fighting against injustice and oppression and those kinds of things are absolutely valid. Trying to fight for things that we feel like we're losing, that don't exist in heaven. I'm not saying you can't do it, I'm just saying I'm not sure it has any kind of eternal value.
Gotcha.
I know some people have said there's going to be football and baseball in heaven and all that kind of stuff. There is, great. I love all that stuff. All I care is that there's no pain, there's no suffering, there's no evil, there's no witchcraft, there's no sickness, there's only God and eternal bliss.
There's a king on the throne, and his name is Jesus.
There's just the euphoria that I felt in that other place of the love of God.
Gotcha.
That was so overwhelming. And there'll be plenty to do, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'll give one rip about golf, baseball, and all the things I love down here. I really don't think I'll care.
That's a big statement coming
It is,
from you.
it is a big statement, but I don't think I will care when I get to
I don't
heaven.
think you'll care either.
And I think we just need to remember this is not our home.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's okay. I actually applaud the people who are rising up against the overreach of government right now and those things. I don't think those things should just be let go. At the same time, don't forget this is not your home.
Yeah, that's good. And we
temper your voice and how you speak.
Right.
And remember that everything that we say will be brought back to us someday and give an account for.
That's a good word from my father.
It's a good word for me.
For all of us.
So.
Darn it. You know what I've had to do this week? This is totally being practical. Anytime I've turned on Facebook, I've gotten totally disgusted. And so I'm only turning it on to see, like, what's being said at 2 p.m. From our team. Just because it's so, not even that it's not real good stuff, it's causing that chaos in the heart. And I've gotten nearly ready to post something and had deleted it like 20 different times. I think what you just said about tempering your words is...
Yeah, I don't post much right now.
Yeah, it's not that we can't, or that it wouldn't be okay or right, or that it wouldn't even be truth. It's just...
I have feelings about what's going on, but...
I do too.
The thing is, we are going to get past this wave of trouble, and the glory's going to come.
Yeah, it's look for the glory.
And I want to be looking for that cloud the
Right.
size of a man's hand. I've seen it. And at some point, it's going to rain like a flood.
Come on. I agree. So I felt like, is there any way, I'm springing this on you, but I feel like Steve Schultz this morning. Can we stand as a lighthouse this morning on the eastern gate We really kind of are on an eastern gate anyway, here where we're located in this city. And can we declare, would you lead us in that? And everyone that's watching right now, I just want you to just join in, posture your hearts as the church. I want us to declare the glory of the Lord being released on the earth right now in this time. All of the pieces are coming together in a culminating moment for right now. And I'm not saying this is the last days, or I'm not making that statement. But I'm saying this is the time for God's glory to be poured out. Chaos has been unleashed. And I see the cloud. In fact, I think Richard this morning posted that on one of the comments. I see a cloud. And I do too. So, would you pray? And we can just get in our, take a minute. You don't have to launch right out.
No, it's okay. I could get emotional.
That's
actually.
okay. Emotions are okay too. But let's just intercede.
I've been feeling something ever since we got here this morning. I just, yeah. I feel the need of the nations for God. There's things going on we don't even focus on because we're focused on the virus,
Right.
the economy. But they're starving in Mozambique and Malawi and Africa again. They haven't recovered from the hurricane and flood from last year. They've been inundated with terrorism again. People don't even know that stuff. This is just our world here in America. We're fighting for America, but there's a whole world that is so in need of God.
Yeah.
And God, we just cry out to you to release your glory on the earth. Give us a stay from this trouble and release your glory, God, that many would come to righteousness and many would see a light and come to the light out of this darkness, God. Release your goodness, Lord, all over the world, in America as well, Lord. Lord, I think it's commendable for people to pray for people to be in unity and all of those kinds of things. We're not capable without the knowledge of your glory, Lord.
Yes.
Release the knowledge of your glory. Release the power of your presence. Of course we want the virus stopped, Lord. Of course we want the economy to hum. But God, even more than that, we need souls to be saved in this nation, Lord. God. We've cried out for this for decades.
Yes.
Let it be now, God.
Yes.
That people are awakened. I just declare awakening all over the nation, God, where people who have been in darkness see a great light.
Yes.
And they bow the knee and they confess that Jesus is Lord. And they cry out for mercy and they cry out for love. God, release your presence, your power, and your glory. You've told us we can ask anything we ask, you'll do it for us, but it's according to your will, God.
Yes.
Prayer of the kingdom is, your kingdom come according to your will on earth. Let it be done. God, I'm convinced it's your will to bring a massive awakening and harvest in this nation.
Yes.
Release it, Lord, all over the land.
Yes.
Let us see the evidence of it, God, soon. Confirm your word with signs and wonders following, Lord. God will give you the glory and the honor. Nobody can save this nation now, Lord, but you.
Yes.
Nobody can cause a great turning in the shift that you've begun, but you. So God, we thank you for your love and your goodness. It was so energized by the song about today, Lord, your goodness. Lord, in the midst of all this trouble, you're still good.
Yeah.
And you love humanity more than we love ourselves. Certainly more than we love each other. God, would you come in power and reveal your glory? For Jesus' sake. Amen.
Amen. Well, family, I pray you're encouraged today. But I also pray that you're challenged. And I pray that we remember who we are. Pray that we remember the authority and the power that comes through our intercession and through our obedience. I pray that you would pray, that I would pray, that we would all pray and enter into a season of intercession like never before. We would cry out for the glory. We would cry out for awakening. And that would be the first priority. And everything else that we do would be motivated out of that. And I just pray for your families today. If any of you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Our team is ready to connect with you. You can, like Angela said this morning, you can email us at info@jesuspursuit.org. You can send us a message through Facebook. You can, if you have our number, you can text us. We would love to connect with you and pray with you. If you're not part of a Zoom group and you want to be, let us know. If there's just tangible needs that you have, I know some of you have been without work. We want to be community and family and help in this time, but the greatest thing that we can do right now is pray. So we love you. Thank you so much, Dad, for sharing this really important story. It's not a story. I mean, it's a true story.
It was a journey.
Yeah.
And you said, would anybody just do this? It's like, this came out of a 6-month long season of prayer.
Yeah.
And how could I not? Really. But it can happen for anybody.
Yeah.
They'll get alone with God and seek him till you find him.
Right, and I think that's been one of the greatest blessings of, in the midst of hard times, there's always, I don't know if you want to call it a silver lining, but there's always goodness. God is always releasing his goodness. And the greatest goodness in this for me has been the time for intimacy with the Lord. my schedule isn't what it used to be. And it's still full, but oh my goodness, it hasn't been what it was. And I have taken it to full advantage, and I am worshiping my face off, and I'm praying my face off early in the morning and into late in the day. This is the time to buy oil. You know, in Matthew 25, this is the time where we're waiting for the bridegroom to come. And rather than busying ourselves only with good things and forgetting about the intimacy part, I just confess that has been a season of my most recent life, has been doing really good things for Jesus and not minding my own lamp. And this has been a season of it's getting filled, and it's so good. And I think a lot of us can say the same thing, because I think we're about ready to have things open, and we're about able to start running again. And we don't want to leave the good things from this season and forget them, taking them into the next. And so keep buying oil while we can. And keep praying. And out of those places of intimacy come these amazing encounters and journey with the Lord. So let me see, did anybody say anything about prayer? We've been going a while this morning, so if you have any prayer needs, throw them here in the comments, and we will get back to you through the day, and we'll just continue to pray. You can continue to just comment here on the Facebook page. Even after we hit finish, things are still going, and we'll get into contact with you and pray for one another. God bless you. I really do feel a shift has happened, as far as like some of the things. I know our governor has put another, an extension, but things are opening up one way or another, and we're being wise and honoring in this time, but we're also have our eyes open to see what heaven is doing as well as what the earth is up to. So keep praying, keep praying, keep praying. We love you, and we will see you 2 o'clock tomorrow. Angela's going to be with us 2 o'clock tomorrow. And until then, we love you. God bless you.